Hypixel Skyblock. A game with hundreds of custom mobs. Each of them sometimes have a few hundred HP, a few thousand HP, some of them even a few million HP. Players try to kill them with dealing damage to them. That's why one of the most common goals of each player is to increase their damage as far as they can. Fewer hits to an enemy means they live shorter. The shorter they live, the less damage they can deal to you. But how much damage can you even deal in one single hit in Hypixel Skyblock at the moment? In this video I will calculate the highest possible damage in one single hit. We are not talking about glitches like spamming bats in frozen chunks in dungeons or being technoblade with the armor of the rising sun. Before we start calculating, which stats do we even need to deal damage and how do we increase them? The most known stats are strength and crit damage. Strength adds you a lot of damage and crit damage multiplies it when you deal a critical hit. But if you want to deal the highest possible damage you also need speed and intelligence. Speed for an item known as the Warden Helmet, which multiplies your damage the more speed you have. And intelligence for a strategy known as left-click mage. I've already made a video about it, link in the info card. But how do we increase the strength, crit damage, intelligence and speed? The most four important things are armor, weapon, pet and talismans. Because you need to be in dungeons for the highest possible damage, let's assume you are a catacombs level 50. Stats from the sword and armor are all catacombs 50 stats. As you might know we need an ancient storm set with a Warden Helmet as armor. The armor must be completely maxed including Big Brain 5 and Legion 5 on every single piece. The armor in total adds you 628 strength, 768 crit damage and 4686 intelligence. Also a bit speed but I'll come to that later. For the sword we use a maxed out Hyperion with Giant Killer 7, First Strike 5, Smite 7 and Chimera 5. The sword itself adds 29 weapon damage, 2542 intelligence, 395 crit damage and 2457 strength. For the talismans we use a completely recamped set of talismans. The mythic and legendary talismans are reforged to strong, the epic, rare and uncommon talismans are reforged to shady. Mythic and legendary talismans have a strength enrichment on them. In total these talismans add 512 strength, 515 crit damage and 5 intelligence. The best pet at the moment is the legendary Ender Dragon with an antique remedies on it. Why is it so overpowered? Just look at the third perk of the pet. It buffs all important player stats we need by 10%, which is very insane. The pet itself adds 90 strength and 50 crit damage. But there are way more items and quests which can increase the damage. There are 227 fairy souls which adds a total of 53 strength. There is also the tier 5 beacon from the dwarven mines. If you set the player stat perk to strength you gain 10 strength all around Skyblock. Some more pretty important things are skills. Mainly the foraging and combat skill. The foraging skill at level 50 adds 100 strength, the combat skill at level 60 adds plus 210% damage to all mobs in Skyblock. But there is more. Since we need intelligence too, the enchanting and alchemy skill are very important as well. Enchanting adds 120 intelligence, meaning 2 intelligence per level. Alchemy also adds 2 intelligence per level. But the level cap is 50 at the moment. So it only adds 100 intelligence. Subscribing sadly does not increase your strength or crit damage in any way, but it would help me a lot. But you can also increase your damage by maxing out the Essence Shop in the Dungeon Hub. You can get global perks in the Wither Essence Shop and dungeons only perks in the Undead Essence Shop. If you maxed out both of them, you gain 55 strength, 70 intelligence and 50 crit damage inside dungeons. But there is more. If you get your Spider Slayer level and Wolf Slayer level to level 9 you will gain 18 crit damage. There are some more extra items which increase your damage. There are century cakes which you can eat every 48 hours. They last for 48 hours as well. You gain 2 strength from them. You might also use a plasma flux power orb which adds 35 strength and a weird tuba which adds 30 strength. Since you are in dungeons while dealing the damage you can't use a god potion. But there are dungeon potions. You can obtain them by buying them from Ophelia in the Dungeon Hub or by getting them from the Speedy Watcher in Floor 5. Floor 6 and Floor 7. If you use a Floor 7 dungeon potion you will gain 30 crit damage and 40 strength. You might also use a training weight. It increases its strength by playing the game for several minutes. 50 strength is the maximum it can add you, so use a level 50 training weight as well. Last but not least, dungeon blessings. You want to deal your damage in Floor 7 since there are the most blessings you can get. Let's assume you get a Power 24 blessing, a Wisdom 13 blessing and a Stone 9 blessing. You get 3239 intelligence, 1862 strength, 1030 crit damage and 52 weapon damage if your forbidden blessing is maxed, which you can buy from the Undead Essence shop in the Dungeon Hub as well. In total you would now have 5924 strength, 2856 crit damage, 2142 weapon damage and 10762 intelligence. Since our armor is maxed with Legion, Big Brain and Chimera, we need to add some more stats. You also get 25 intelligence from Big Brain 5, and since we're using an Ender Dragon pet you would get another 90 strength and 50 crit damage from Chimera 5. You would now have 6014 strength, 2906 crit damage, 2142 weapon damage and 10787 intelligence. Now we have to multiply the stats by 1.156 because the Ender Dragon gives a 10% stat boost, and since there can be up to 4 more players in a dungeon and we are using Legion, we need to add 5.6% more stats as well. The final player stats are 6952 strength, 3359 crit damage, 12,469 intelligence and still 2,142 weapon damage, because weapon damage isn't a player stat and can't be multiplied by Legion or the Ender Dragon pet. But we need more information about our gear to calculate the damage. The next thing we need to know are our sword enchantments, which increase damage to mobs. Since we are in dungeons and we are trying our damage to a crypt lurker, we need Smite 7 on our Hyperion. Smite 7 deals 56% more damage to undead mobs. Because we need a decimal number, we must convert the 56% into it. 56% are equal to 0.56. The next enchantment your Hyperion needs is Giant Killer 7. The Crypt Lurker in floor 7 has 420,000 horsepower, so let's calculate how much damage we would deal to it. The formula for that is, enemy health minus player health divided by player health times 0.1 times enchant level times 100%. The enemy health is 420,000 minus the player health, which is usual about 13,000 to 14,000, divided by the player health, which is 14,000. Now we just have to calculate 29, which is the result, times 0.1 times the enchant level, which is 7. Times 100%. 29 times 0.1 is equal to 2.9. 2.9 times 7 is equal to 20.3. So Giant Killer would deal an extra 20% damage to the Crypt Lurker. Converting the number into a decimal number is equal to 0.203. The last enchantment your Hyperion should have is First Strike 5. It deals 25% more damage on the first hit for each level, meaning it would deal 125% more damage to the Crypt Lurker on the first hit. Converting 125% into a decimal number, again, is equal to 1,25. Now we can finally start calculating the damage we would deal. Starting off with the base damage. You can now see the formula for the base damage on screen. The first thing we have to do is dividing our strength by 5 and also by 100. 6,952 strength divided by 5 is equal to 1,390.4. 6,952 strength divided by 100 is equal to 69.52. So our base damage would be 5 plus the 2,142 weapon damage, plus strength divided by 5, which is equal to 1,390.4 times 1, plus strength divided by 100, which is equal to 69.52. The result for this is 249,457.4. The next thing we need to calculate is the damage multiplier, including your enchantment stats, the combat level and the weapon bonus. You can now see the formula for the multiplier on screen. 1 plus 2.1, which is the increased damage from combat level 60, plus the enchantment stat, which is 2.013, plus the weapon bonus, which is 0 because we do not have a weapon bonus. The result for that is equal to 5.113. Now we can finally calculate the final damage. You can now see the formula for the final damage on screen. First off, we have to divide the crit damage by 100. 3,359 divided by 100 is equal to 33.59. We have to calculate the base damage, which is 249,457.4 times the damage multiplier, which is 5.113 times the armor bonus, which is 0 because there is no armor bonus, increasing the damage dealt to zombies times 1 plus crit damage divided by 100. The final result for this is 44,118,703.9. But that's not the highest possible damage. Remember when we talked about the armor we wear? We are wearing a Warden Helmet. The ability multiplies your damage depending on how much speed you have. Technoblade isn't Mayor anymore, so the highest possible speed is 200 while wearing a Warden Helmet with an Ender Dragon pet. You can easily get the speed by spamming your Rogue Sword for a few seconds. Since the Warden Helmet converts every 25 speed you have into 10% extra damage, you would deal 80% more damage at 200 speed. Multiplying 44,118,703.9 by 1.8 equals 79,413,667. The last thing we have to do is multiplying the damage with the intelligence, because as I said earlier, we use the left-click mage strategy. About every 100 intelligence you have, you gain 10% damage from the Mage Staff ability. You would have 12,469 intelligence. Dividing that by 10 would be the percentage of extra damage you would gain from the Mage Staff. 12,469 divided by 10 equals to 1,246.9%. And now the final formula for the highest possible damage in Hypixel Skyblock: 79,413,667 times 12.469 equals to an insane amount of 990,209,013 damage. Keep in mind that the real damage you would deal with this setup might be different. The Mage Staff scales with range. I've tested that to a crypt lurker. As you can see, the damage is a lot different to each other depending on how close you are to this monster. Also keep in mind that all monsters in Skyblock have defense. I chose the crypt lurker for the damage test because it is one of the monsters with the least defense. But it still has defense, so the damage might be a bit reduced due to this as well. That's it for today's video. That was probably the longest video I've ever made using text-to-speech. I hope you enjoyed it anyways. If you are still watching the video to this point, comment horsepower. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Bye.